Hi everyone, it's Elise. Welcome back to my channel where I like to talk about all things personal finance. And in today's video, I want to take some time to talk about the silent, not so talked about killers of wealth for Americans. It is not a surprise that there is probably a higher number of people who are struggling financially in America than we feel comfortable with and would want. Particularly the younger half of the generations are struggling, I think so, more than the older. And so when I talk about younger, I'm talking about millennials and Gen Z. And I say that because we have had a lot of things happen starting with the time when millennials were coming of age, that it has been a cascade ever since. As opposed to boomers, where after the war, they pretty much had it good for the most part. I'm not trying to say that boomers are out here rich. They are house rich if they have a home, but they have to work like everybody else. And that's another reason why us millennials are suffering a little bit more, is because they are not retiring. But if you can't retire in your 60s and your 70s, that's not a strong sign that financially you're okay. Now, for millennials and Gen Z, the obvious reason why we tend to suffer a little bit more financially is we are carrying a higher debt load. We have debt on debt on debt, different types of debt, but the older generations didn't have to really deal with it as much as we do. So the first silent killer that I want to talk about that we can become aware of so that hopefully we can maneuver around it is that we don't have a plurality of pensions available to the average American worker like we used to. Pensions were much more common around 60 to 70 years ago. Most people who were labor employed and worked for a living, they had pensions. Pensions were more found in private as much as they were found in public. But like I said, 60 to 70 years ago is when it stopped. And I argue for two reasons. Greed. Companies didn't want to have to pay for you. They decided they don't want to have to pay for you in your elder years. Like, why? And I think another thing is that's when the civil rights movement happened and things became more equal. And I think that also bothered the people that be, because more people were going to benefit from it. Now, pensions allow for you, if you work for the company for 15 to 20 to 30 years, I think it's 20 to 30 to 40 years, you were entitled to getting, let's say, a stipend every month in your golden years for you to retire. Those are not widespread anymore. Most pensions that are available are in the public sector. So you got to think teachers, firefighters, police officers, bus drivers, maybe librarians, things that are public connected, that help our society, state-wise, community-wise, city-wise function. But if you are private, you work for pretty much anything that's not public, you don't get those anymore. And they transition into 401ks. And 401ks put the responsibility of the employed, not the employer. And if you are up to par on your knowledge and your dedication and your diligence into putting to your 401k, you are fine. But how many people actually do that? It is a slim minority. And even with you being a millennial teacher or firefighter or police officer, you got to be concerned about if your pension is going to be there for you later on in life, because a lot of these state governments, they're putting them into investment vessels that don't have them fare well when it's time for them to be made available to the people when in their 60s and their 70s. And that puts a lot of pressure on us. And I think when you are being introspective and you're like, damn, why is my money not doing where it needs to be? It can't just be that you are terrible. You have to think about that, you know what? I'm doing the best I can, and things that are available to people older than me, they're just not available to me anymore. And it's not that you shouldn't get angry about it. I'm not saying get angry, but you got to get angry, you got to move on, and you got to find a way to get around it. The second silent killer of wealth that I want y'all to stay with me on, because I don't know if you've ever thought about it, but I want y'all to just follow me as I explain this, is traffic. Yes, probably never thought about that. But I want you to think about what your commute is and think about how if people that tend to be older than you had to deal with that. And your answer is probably not. You know why? Because America has gotten, I guess, bigger population-wise, and especially if you live in a medium to large city, the commutes have drastically increased. And I live in a metro area. When I was working a corporate job and I guess a higher paying job, my commute in the morning to deal with Miami traffic was an hour and 25 minutes, and going home on the highway was still 40 minutes. I don't remember grandma and my mom ever having to deal with commutes like that, ever. That is killing your time. And what is time always told to us that it is? Time equals money. Most of us are coming home to decompress and sit down and watch TV on our couches. There's nothing wrong with that. I am a couch potato. I love watching TV on my couch, but that's not good for us because sedentariness brings diseases. The big three is high blood pressure, high blood sugar, and high cholesterol. Decades of that, being on medication or not being on medication, disease states come, and then when you're in your golden years, you're dealing with that, and you have higher premiums because you have these disease states that you are dealing with now because you dedicated a lot of your life to something outside of yourself and you did not have the time to put into yourself. And that's what I mean by it's a silent killer, because being on the road for 2 hours a day for 30 plus years takes a lot of time away from you putting into yourself. And working out may not be your bag. I'm not saying that's your thing, but different hobbies that you like to do, whether it's painting or reading a book, you can't do that if you're in your car going to somebody's job and you lose a lot of your time. And I really think that's one reason why work from home became popular, because a lot of things that we do at work we can't do at home. So it just made sense. We save so much money, but we found ourselves having more time for ourselves. And I do fear that it adds up time-wise and money-wise because it affects us in a negative way. And I think that does kill our wealth. And as a millennial going to be 40 soon, I could see, and I've seen in my counterparts, how that has affected us. We have long commutes, most of us, if not a high majority of us. The third silent killer that is killing our wealth that I don't think we think about anymore is that there is no more community and there's not that much focus on family anymore. Obvious reasons and non-obvious reasons. The first obvious reason is that there is really not a village to raise children. So that's expensive, because long gone are the days where you are a person that comes from a sibling home of 10 to 7 to 12 to 6 siblings. No, I'm one of 2. A lot of people are one of 2, one of 3, and now there's this new trend where girls are saying, I'm one and done. I got me and my baby and I'm good. Another non-obvious reason why that is a wealth killer is for your heart. With the onboarding of social media, the last, I would say, 25 years, it's brought us supposedly a bigger network to socialize with people, but we also don't socialize with the people right in front of us. And there are large barriers with how we communicate with people who are in our close vicinity. I see it all the time. At my current job where I work in a restaurant, it is very common and happenstance to see a family of 4, a family of 3, they're all there, but they're each on their phone. And it befuddles me every time because I'm like, why are we on our phone when we're eating dinner? And I think that's because with the onset and the development of social media, we are somewhat social, at least on a screen, but being social in person is very hard for us. And I don't know about you, but I've had to work on my social awkwardness ever since the pandemic, because I realized that first of all, I was socially awkward and I wanted to get out of it. In like friendship circles, when a friend is not able to be what I want for them, instead of like trying to make them be what I want for them, I decided to stop doing that, and I was just like, just find other friends. But finding other friends is not easy, but it's doable. I will say that I have been able to find other friends. Super grateful for that, but I think we need to be honest about it. Like, that is killing our wealth emotionally. And when you don't have villages and networks, that also kills you professionally. Networking is important for your net worth. That comment makes sense, because I will be honest, the reason about half of the jobs that I've gotten is from people that I knew, not because of my ability and my resume. Now, I was able to back up my work through my ability and my resume and the skills that I developed for myself, but your net worth is your net worth. And also, the jobs that we generally have nowadays do not allow for community. So your family be damned. Your connection to your family and community can be damned. And I know it's not feasible for us to quit our retail jobs. I know that's not feasible, but I think that it's important to realize it contributes. It contributes. Jobs are getting creative to making sure that it works for them and not so much for you. So over time, not having that community and not having tight family contracts as much as we used to back 60 years ago does affect you long-term, financially, emotionally, and physically. I saw a statistic the other day that's saying the epidemic of loneliness that is happening affects you more so than if you were like an alcoholic. the epidemic of loneliness apparently leaves you worse off cognitively, it leaves you worse off emotionally. And I think if you're watching this video and you become aware of it, if you find yourself kind of leaning towards kind of sticking to yourself because maybe after work you just want to decompress, you can notice it more and be like, no, I got to get out of this. I got to let me call a family member. Let me go on a walk. Let me be more talkative to people, not give people death stares. Talk to more people more often, because it does help our dopamine. It does help our serotonin, and it makes us richer in life throughout and even as we get older. And then the last silent killer of wealth I left to talk about last, because this one is a little bit more obvious and we are bombarded with the good and the bad of it in our news cycles every day, and that is artificial intelligence, for short known as AI. AI is coming, there's no stopping it, but I do not know if we know what the final effect will be. The pessimists are saying that it's gonna take all of our jobs, and the optimists are saying it's only gonna make our life on a daily manner better. I am in the middle. I do not think it's gonna cause us to lose all our jobs. I do think there's gonna have to be a curve on how we work through it and learn how to deal with it now that it's here. But as someone who has used AI, it's not so amazingly smart as people say it is. AI, to me, and this is my opinion, it's nothing new of being a social, a search engine where you ask it things and it gives you the information quickly. So ultimately, it saves time and it's gonna make us as personal people efficient, and it's gonna make companies efficient. That makes sense why companies want to onboard it. But it's not foolproof, and there's just some things you cannot do without human interaction. And I think that might be the gotcha that the creator is always gonna make sure we need. There's ain't nothing like the real thing, baby. You know that song? Like, it's true. When AI messes up, when a computer messes up, who are you going to need to fix it? A human being. When AI messes up in customer service, who are you gonna need to talk to that person? A human being. So I think there's going to be a new balance that is constructed. But what I think where we may be caught into a problem is that employers are finding that they're not finding talent in younger generations like they used to. And I 100% know why. Because the younger generations are finding a way to use artificial intelligence to do their work in school. If that is not tempered with, to reverse it back to how when I was in school, I needed to know how to create a story, a short story, a draft, paragraphs that led into a general thought of what my paper is going to be about, and get it done and do a rough draft, a final draft, etc. That apparently is not happening in school anymore. And if that is not figured out, that is where we're going to be in trouble. So now that I'm aware, and I've actually shared with you guys some things that I think are killing our wealth, I have only been able to kind of find ways to fight against my particular vulnerabilities. So my particular vulnerabilities that I have found is artificial intelligence, as well as not having a village. And I've been working on them for a few years now. Like, never stop trying. And I think that is what helps you better off in life, where in your finances and in your personal life. Never stop trying, and never stop being bad at something new, because eventually you'll get better at it. That's all I have for now this video, guys. Let me know in the comments what you think about the 4 things that I have aforementioned in this video. Let me know if there's a 5th, 6th, or 7th thing that you have realized that is killing wealth of us millennials, as well as the Gen Zers. And let me know in the comments so we can discuss it a little bit more. I will see you guys next week for my next Thursday video. And as always, thank you so much for hanging out. If you are here and you're not subscribed, please subscribe, and also give me a like on this video, and I will see you guys next week.